Welcome to BARI Banter, where we talk everything bariatric surgery with the people that know it best, the patients. I'm Shannon, and I'm here with my co-hostest with the mostest,
Lita. So sit back, relax, and remember, sip, sip, sip.
Sup, leader.
Hey, Shan.
Oh, you didn't ignore me this week.
How you doing?
I got really offended when I was editing the last week's podcast. You ignored me in the early stages, and I was like, was she mad at me? No.
No,
I
no.
knew you weren't. It's fine. Do you find now that you've had bariatric surgery, you meet bariatric patients everywhere?
No.
Okay, you don't do that? Okay.
Well, I can't.
Maybe it's just me then.
I do because I work in a bariatric clinic.
True. You meet them frequently.
Every day.
Wow. Yeah, because I was doing a job around the corner and the client was like, oh my God, talk to the guy out the back. His partner had bariatric surgery. And like she knew I had bariatric surgery. And then I just had to somehow drop that into conversation on a job site. And I'm just kind of like, so... No one's had bariatric surgery. We had a good chat about it.
That was the most awkward text message that I got from you too, because you're like,
yeah.
do you know such and such? And I was like, should I? And he's like, oh, she had surgery through your clinic. And I was like, oh, this is awkward.
Yeah, I know. And then I was kind of just ignored that when I said, I asked my partner, if she knew her. And then I just kind of ignored it when I went back to him because I wasn't going to be like, she doesn't remember. But yeah, no, it was good getting the dynamic too, because like he was very open and honest about like he wasn't super understanding of her having the surgery and stuff. And I'm like, wow, like we're like kind of like besties now. Like that, I feel like it's a big fact to share. It's very honest, but it's a big fact to share to say, didn't support her decision to have bariatric surgery.
And now he's fully on board with it?
Yeah, he's in an awkward situation though, because with his partner, her mum and stuff had it as well, and they haven't done super great. So he's kind of like on like two sides, but she seems to be doing really well and taking the right approach with the whole thing. So and the future would tell. But I think because he was asking me a lot of questions that made me think maybe he wanted to have it as well. He wasn't a big guy, he was a solid guy, but he was asking questions like, so how long did it take you back to work? And I was like, 6 weeks, because obviously it's quite heavy lifting. And I was like, why? Did your partner do a heavy lifting job? No, she works in an office. And I was like, oh, okay, you asking for you. But yeah, no, I love it. I love being able to I just feel like the more you put yourself out there with the bariatric side of things, the more people you go, oh, my cousin's friend had it and da-da-da-da. And then you kind of get to understand their little journey and everyone's really happy to talk about it unless they're like a secret sleever. But
well, it's funny that you say a secret sleever because I was actually thinking about somebody who I would like to get on in the future, who I know personally, but she is a secret sleever. And I was kind of thinking, I think she's got a phenomenal story to tell, but I know that she still is a secret sleever. So I'm like, how could we get her on, but not get her to tell, to still tell her true story? But and I was just sitting here thinking, we wouldn't be able to record it visually and we just have to change her name. But I think that I'd really, really, really like to get her on. And I was like, it still blows my mind that there's
Who is it? No, I'm just kidding.
It blows my mind that there's still... I mean, it's your choice. You can say it. But because we're so open and honest about the whole process, I forget that there's people who don't necessarily want the whole world to know about it.
Yeah. Speaking of secret sleevers, not so much a secret sleever, but I guess today doesn't have an Instagram and shares it that way.
That blew you.
Yeah, I was kind of like, I went to Alita as I'm writing the intro and I'm like, so what's her Instagram handle? And Alita's like, she doesn't have one. And I was like, that's awesome.
And she's also from over the ditch.
She is. She's overseas.
It's another one of our international guests.
Yeah, in this current situation, I feel like New Zealand is literally the other side of the world.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Well, let's introduce her.
Oh, I guess I can do that.
Yeah, can you? Yeah. Okay.
So our guest today was bypassed in August of 2020. Her start weight was 103 kilos and she refused to get on the scales before that. So she doesn't actually know what her heaviest weight was. She's now down to roughly around 60 kilos. Here to talk about her bariatric process without an Instagram is Shelley Simpson. Hey, Shelley, how you doing?
Hi, guys.
Just really emphasising on the no Instagram thing.
We can't all have Instagram profiles.
No, it's probably not a bad thing, and that's kind of why I found it awesome. I was like, oh my God, I literally had at the start of this week a bit of I just want to go offline for a bit. But I'm so addicted to my phone and the internet. It's not a possibility. Maybe it's one of those slow wean off things, wean myself away from it a little bit.
You have been weaning yourself away from it, though.
I've tried to cut down on my screen time. But yeah, if I didn't have an Instagram, that would take a lot of time.
How have you found, though, that not having Instagram, have you had support through like your journey?
Oh, definitely. The clinic that I went through in New Zealand they have a secret Facebook page that it's just patients only, I guess. And there's a number of Facebook type things. I'm in my 40s, so Instagram's not really probably a massive thing for us, I guess.
Yep.
So we're a bit more on the Facebook generation side.
Yep.
But I think, my clinic's pretty keen, I guess, on us sort of being a little unit and a little family in itself, really.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of people that say, do this, and our doctors are saying something different. So, yeah.
I kind of get that because you're right. There is a lot of misinformation out there. Like, I'm probably sure I've shared information that probably wasn't true in the past just because I thought it was, but it wasn't. Let's talk about, like, obviously New Zealand versus Australia. We're obviously superior. No, I'm just kidding. But obviously going down the bariatric lines in New Zealand is a lot different than Australia. Like, do you know the differences very well, or like how's your process been with, like, funding it and your experiences with your surgeon and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we don't have the medical side or the what do you call it? You guys have insurance that generally covers that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's not really a thing in New Zealand. It's actually really, really hard to get it funded across here. Some people can go and use their superannuation. You've got to go through a certain process to use your superannuation to do it. I think it's less than 3% of people are actually eligible on the public health system. You have to be 150 plus kilos to even contemplate it, even
to qualify,
go through that process. Yeah. Or you have to have a lot of comorbidities that actually allow you to. Generally, you have to make sure you have to be insulin dependent, and you have to have back problems, hip problems, knee problems, significant.
You need to be broken.
Ones that need surgery. You need to be really broken.
Yeah.
Actually, my doctor said to me when he met me, he said there's so many people that are. They're the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. They want to be the ambulance at the top of the cliff, stopping people from going down and breaking themselves on the way, or breaking themselves at the bottom. It should actually be the other way around. You should be able to catch people before they get to the point where they're significantly, in trouble.
That's very, very true. So do you have private health care in New Zealand, or is it just it isn't part of a lot of the insurance policies over in New Zealand? Like, why can't you do private health cover?
It's not really part of the insurance policies, and private health cover is not really significant over here. Our public health system is actually incredible.
Yeah.
Way to rub it
we
in.
don't have to pay for I know, sorry. Sorry. We don't actually have to pay for a lot of things. I had endometriosis when I was younger. I had surgery and I didn't pay for that. There wasn't any sort of out-of-pocket expenses. I've also had a hysterectomy in the public system.
Wow.
So, yeah, I think there's just so much, I guess, that our health system does pay for that, it's just either it's not caught up yet or it's just not something that, most people here just don't have the health insurance.
Yeah.
And, there's not a huge amount of health insurance companies that cover it.
Yeah.
And basically, so it's an out-of-pocket expense, and it's generally 20 to 25 grand.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Unless you fall into that bracket.
Yeah, I was going to ask how much it was, like, out of pocket, because ours is about 22, isn't it? Like,
it depends on the hospital, but roughly, if you're going to a private hospital, especially here on the Sunshine Coast, it's between sort of 22 and 23,000, or 20 to 23,000 if you're uninsured. But there was also, I don't know the exact stat, but there are a certain amount of people in our public system who can get covered. But I think it's something like 300 patients over the entire year, which 300 sounds like a big number. But when you're looking at one clinic, it's like it's tiny. So essentially, if you're going to go through the public system over here, you have to be, as Shelley just said, you have to be have like fallen off that cliff and literally be in a dire state before they'll even consider you.
Which is, yeah, sad. Like Shelley just said, like you should be stopping people from going off the cliff, not trying to like put something at the bottom to catch them. You know what I mean? Like you should be stopping it before,
or
it
at least
actually
stopping
happens.
it halfway. Be like, okay, well, you've tried these things.
Stop
It's
halfway.
not working. We're just going to catch you and help you out a little bit.
And if you want, we can tip it to the side and you can keep falling. It's up to you.
It's up to you, but
yeah. How did you find with your surgeon, like the whole program they put you through? How's the aftercare and different things been? Like, how's that compare?
I mean, it's different depending on where you are in New Zealand and where you actually get it done. My weight loss surgery, we have a incredible support network, and they kind of liken it to having a baby. You know, everyone worries about the operation and what it's going to be, and they focus very significantly on the other side of the operation itself.
Mm-hmm.
So we have, our team is a surgeon, a bariatric consultant or a nurse practitioner, a dietitian, a clinical psychologist, and a PT person.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the team, and they basically, you do your pre-checks, get signed off, make sure everything's good, go and see the psychologist, and sometimes some surgery teams, that's the only time you see a psychologist. At my team, I've written it down because it's actually quite a lot. It's our initial appointment, 6 weeks post, 4 months post, 8 months post, 12 months post.
Oh, wow.
And then you've got a checkup at 18 months and a checkup at 24 months.
Was that the psychologist or the dietitian?
So it's a 2-year program. All of it.
Wow.
So I've seen my psychologist every single appointment that I've had pre and post. I saw the surgeon at 6 weeks and again at a year. And yeah, we see the dietitian, the psychologist, sometimes the nurse, and definitely the PT every time.
Wow.
And you just go from room to room to room to room, and yeah.
Because what was in your pre-form, you mentioned about a retreat. I'm interested to hear about that. What was this retreat that you talk of?
Yeah, so there's a 4-day residential program that they run as part of you actually pay for it as part of your whole package. So the idea is that you have a 2-year post surgery, you have a 2-year sort of care plan, and as part of that, there's a 4-day residential program, and it's called the Healthy Living Retreat, and it's at Awakuni. And basically, you have 10 people who go to retreats who are patients, and up to 6 staff members.
Wow. And how far post-op are you when you go to that retreat?
It depends. It's generally, they recommend it's at that year mark, 8 months to a year mark. So you've sort of done the majority of your weight loss, and it's basically like a tune-up. And I remember them saying that, and they say it a lot, that the care that they want for you is self-care, is not, pampering baths and bubbles and facials and exactly. It's actually much harder and stickier than that. It's opening up, it's working through why you do what you do. I mean, we're bariatric patients. We've all got problems with food. We wouldn't have got ourselves in the situation we did without having a problem. And it's admitting the problem, acknowledging the problem, and working through how your new life basically pans out post-surgery. Because you can't just cut somebody open and send them off and go, good luck. It's about and that's more. Why I chose the team that I have, because it's a family and it's a support network that they catch you every time. And if you've got an issue, you can ring the psychologist and say, look, I really need to bring my appointment forward because I actually need to talk to you. Or you can email the dietitian and ask them questions. It's a really it's a really good system. So, I'm so grateful.
When we said that you didn't have the support of the community, you have your own community that you have the support of by the sound of it. Like, you don't need the greater community because you've got your own little family.
Yeah, and I'm nowhere near, I'm not a secret sleever, although I've had the real why. It's not, I'm actually very vocal about it in my sort of circles and on Facebook. I sort of said, right, I didn't do it pre-surgery, but I did it post and said, this is what I've done. Just wanted everyone to know because, when you see me next, I'm going to look a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I still get people in the street who haven't seen me for 6 months and don't know who I am.
Wow.
I was somewhere the other day, and I was talking to one of my daughter's old teachers, and they said, "Oh, I just clicked who you are."
Oh, wow.
And I feel like me. I don't feel like I look, I suppose like all of us, I don't feel like I look different, and I just continue with my life. But to everyone else, I look, I'm 40 kilos down, so I look quite different.
This is a very strange thing for, I don't know if it is for you as well, Shan, but for me, because like everybody else who we've sort of gotten on, we've either known on Facebook or Instagram, like not personally, but we've at least been able to stalk their Instagram or something like that beforehand. I legit have no idea what you looked like prior to now. Like, because we've been communicating via email and I just knew you as, Shelley. And then, so I actually am genuinely intrigued because I'm going to ask you at the end of this episode to send me a before photo and a now photo so we can use them for your thumbnail. And I genuinely, you are Shelley, and I can't imagine you being anything other than what you are now. And it's blowing my mind to think of you anything other than what you are. I don't know. I'm really struggling right now.
You always have usually because we look at people's profiles, you kind of know what they look like prior, and you can kind of see. But obviously with you, I look at you and I go, oh, I wonder why what Shelley of over a year ago was. I get what Alita's saying. I definitely do. With the care through the surgeon, it's funny you talk about this because I feel like I had this exact conversation with my surgeon a few weeks back when I sat down with him and I said, something in our kind of system is missing with the surgeon side of things. They've got the surgery down packed, but I feel like they're missing with the care. Like my surgeon has, you've got to see the psychologist, you've got to see the dietitian, you've got the sports and exercise person, but I said to my surgeon the other day, I feel like we don't take full advantage of that because it's linked to the surgeon. And I feel like whenever you go to your surgeon's office, you don't want to be perceived as failing. So you kind of maybe won't open up as much as you usually would. Because I said to my surgeon, I think that there needs to be an external program, especially in Australia, that caters to, those groups getting together and having that open forum with, say, the psychologist and dietitian to kind of get the max effort out of it. But it sounds like, honestly, we're falling behind, especially with New Zealand. Like that package sounds
incredible.
Yeah, it sounds like it gives a big scope of different things that are kind of missing in the Australian system because I know how important support is, and my surgeon's probably one of the most supportive with the program he has set up.
Considering as well, you touch base the whole way through 18 months, and then not only do you touch base with the whole team, you then have the retreat that it sounds like around the time that you'd be going is when you sort of, you've hit your goal weight and you're then starting to move on to the maintenance phase, so to speak. And it's sort of when you need to have that kick up the butt to be kind of okay, cool. Well, you've lost all the weight. Now let's talk about, we're going to spend the next 4 or 5 days talking about how to actually set your life up to continue to maintain this weight loss. It's a brilliant idea.
And it's very, it's very clever.
And it's very uncomfortable, and it's very, you just it's like you're breaking open your shell, and it's like being with your psych for 24/7 for 4 days. It's hardcore, but you admit a lot of things to yourself. And the way that they do it and the support that they give you and the support that you come away from with a whole bunch of new friends from that retreat, then they set up a group for you afterwards and you keep in touch. And, it's a really smart way to do it. And because, we're bariatric patients, there's a reason why we've all eaten our feelings and eaten our emotions and took what we had as children And, you know, I grew up in a house with a very overweight mum, and who I desperately wish had had this surgery because she's had no end of problems post. No, just what's happening, what we are dealing with and what she is dealing with now is just heartbreaking. And growing up in a house where everyone looked at my mum because she was a big lady, and knowing that when we walked down the street, I was very conscious of that. And just sort of, I mean, I guess I was lucky. I actually had a really great doctor who I went to see. You know, everyone reaches their rock bottom point where they actually look at surgery. And my best friend had surgery, so I'd seen her go through that. And then I remember going to my doctor and I said to him, look, you know, I'm exercising like a demon. I'm eating really well, and I'm scared to get on the scales because I just seem to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And he just sat me down and he went, right, are we going to talk about it honestly? And I'm like, yes, give it to me. Yeah, I'm like, yeah. I was like, what do I need to do? You know, do I need blood tests? Because this is not working. I was doing 10,000, 12,000 steps a day religiously, and it just was not shifting off my body. And he said to me, Shelley, you've been doing this for years. You've been yo-yo dieting and dropping and gaining and dropping and gaining and dropping and gaining, and we can't keep doing this. I can't give you any more diet pills. I can't magically make this go away. This, you know, here's an option. Maybe you should look at this. I know it's expensive, and I really appreciated that frank and honest conversation because that's who I am. I'm just black and white. And, you know, him saying this is an option for you actually crystallized it as an option for me.
Yeah.
Before that, I was one of those people that went, surgery is the easy way out. I can't afford it. Why would I? I'm a mum and a wife. How could I take all that money and spend it on my body? And it's just, you know, it wasn't an option because I refused to believe it was an option for me. And there is nothing better than feeling like I can get up and live my life and do the things I want to do and look the way I want to look rather than having a new car in the driveway. You know, 25 grand is probably not a brand new car. It's a decent, nice,
It's a
second-hand
deposit
car.
on a house here in Australia.
Yeah. Well,
nice
yeah.
Suzuki
I
Swift.
wish it was a deposit here. Not really.
No, here either. I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know which part of Australia
I don't
leaders
know
live
what
in.
house you're buying, Lita.
Yeah,
A
that's
tiny house. It's a tiny house. Yeah.
A very tiny house.
One on
Very.
wheels.
Yeah.
One on wheels. Yeah. A caravan.
Yeah. And my best friend said to me, because I was sitting on her floor in tears after my conversation with the doctor, and I'm going, he's right. What do I do? I can't take all this money. And she looked at me and she said, if Richard, my husband, if Richard needed this, what would you do? And I said, well, obviously we'd do it. And she said, call him and ask him if you can do this. And I did. I was in Auckland. I wasn't in Taupo. And Rich was like, of course. Just put it on the mortgage. And that's just, you know, that's the support I needed to go, okay, wow, really? Can I actually spend all this money on my physical body? But psychologically, it just made all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it does make a difference having that support. Like, was the rest of your family pretty good about it? Like, because obviously you seem like you had some like hesitations with surgery, like, and I don't know if maybe it's because other parts of your family maybe weren't super supportive of the idea. Like, how did you find that?
I come from a long line of overweight people. My sister's overweight. My brother is overweight. My mum is overweight. I got pregnant with my daughter Hayley and put on 5 breast sizes. 5 breast sizes.
Wow.
In the first 2 months of being pregnant. And then I lost 5 kilos in the first trimester because I was so ill. And then I put on 30 and never lost them.
Yeah.
And it just exploded my body.
Yeah.
Don't get scared, Lee.
I know.
So much.
It probably won't happen to you. You've had surgery. But it's just for me something in there. And I've always exercised. I've always looked after myself. But my yo-yo dieting was basically, I was fantastic and I was running and I was loving it. and then I would hurt myself. I'd turn my ankle, and I'd stop running, and the weight would go back on, and then I'd do it again, and it would come back off, and it was just, you know, up and down and up and down. I'm so lucky, actually, that I exercised before I had surgery, because I don't need any skin removal surgery. I did exercise a lot pre-surgery. I've always really enjoyed exercising, and I think that's been a huge help, because I think it's that brown fat thing that, you know, your body remembers, and I'm not going to need any skin removal surgery. And then when I do my plank, you can see my stomach. You know, I've got the little jiggly tummy that we all have.
Yep.
But apart from that, you couldn't actually tell I had surgery at all.
Wow.
So I'm very grateful and very lucky for that. And I'm actually really glad I did it when I did, because, you know, a lot of people might have said, oh, at 103, that, you know, oh, that's not that huge. I'm like, yes, but I've seen that reality, and I was getting the high blood pressure, and we'd gone to change our health insurance, and they'd seen how, when I was in my 90s, on the form, and they sent a nurse out to check my blood pressure to see whether they would reinsure me again for this new policy, and they decided they wouldn't. And I was like, oh, geez. Like, that seemed, you know, a little bit OTT, and I was like, well, you know, I just couldn't do anything I wanted to do. But getting back to the whole family thing, with everyone kind of being big, obviously it was a hugely significant and triggering situation for my family. My stepsister had actually said to them, you know, she's also big, but not a blood relation, but we're very, very close in our sort of family. And she had said basically that she was on public list, so she's got a few other comorbidity issues. And so she kind of tabled the idea, and we'd actually, when we lived in Australia for 10 years and we came back, and we had actually said to my mum, you know, and that was in the stomach stapling days and the gastric band days, you know, we'd offered her some money to do it then, and the doctor she'd gone to made her feel so uncomfortable and so embarrassed about talking about having any kind of gastric surgery that she decided she wasn't going to do it. So she just walked out in tears in the end. I was like, well, how are these people even, you know, why are you even looking at talking to people if that's the way you're going to make people feel?
100%.
It's just awful. So it's a bit of a triggering issue. I think they'd rather not talk about it. I have family members who don't refer to my weight at all, which is totally fine. But you know, I just look so different now that, it seems odd that they don't talk about it at all.
Yeah.
It's a strange one, but I get it. You know, it's a very triggering thing being around someone who's had weight loss surgery and who's dropped weight so drastically that, and you change as a person.
Yeah.
You know, your personality changes, what you want to do changes, your opportunities that, you know, you can mountain bike, I went wakeboarding for the first time in 10 years, more, 20 years, and I stood up first time, and I didn't feel that sore the next day. Like, it was remarkable how crazy that was. You know, I never would have done that before, because I would have been scared I would have hurt myself. And it just opens up so many avenues. But a lot of people are triggered by weight loss surgery. They either consider it, I know I was listening to your podcast earlier, and you were talking to somebody who had basically said that, lost my train of thought now. Where was I going with that?
That's all right. Well, so what I'm finding
so
from
it is a triggering thing, and I remember with my best friend when she had surgery, and she's not out in the bariatric world. I remember thinking that it was watching her shrink and feeling like I felt trapped in my body was a hard thing. And, you know, she was my best friend and I loved her more than anything. So I totally get it when I see the same kind of reaction, and I just don't push it. However people react is okay. But yeah, there's a few people that have left out of my life because they just simply can't see it.
Yeah.
Because it makes them feel a certain way about themselves.
Yeah.
You totally nailed it too, though, because like you said that you were watching your best friend, like, you know, lose the weight and everything, and you felt trapped in your body and in your situation. And there's a lot of people, and it sounds like you needed that, like, you know, you needed to have that really confrontational conversation with your doctor, and then you needed to have that confrontational conversation with your husband as well, and your best friend, so to speak. And you felt trapped, and you, like, good on you for actually having those 3 confrontational conversations, because if you didn't, you might not be where you are now. And there's a lot of people who, by the sounds of it, could potentially be in your family as well, who aren't willing to have that confrontational conversation to just unlock that and actually go, you know, I am trapped in the situation that I'm in at the moment, but I'm also too scared and maybe naive to a certain fact to try and get out of that position. So, the way that you just said it then, being trapped in your situation, it kind of nailed it.
Yeah, I think for Shelley as well, I think sometimes, as the expression goes, words unsaid can sometimes be more than words said. So, like, as you're saying, like, because they're not acknowledging, you know, the change you've had, it makes you kind of go, oh, well, the words unsaid make me think a certain way. So that's obviously for you. You almost want to either them say, oh, I can't believe you had surgery, or congratulations, you've done really well. But because they're not saying any word, you kind of like...
You're stuck in this like little limbo, being like, what do they think about me
like,
right now?
Do you support my decision? Do you not support my decision? Do I care? Do I... You know, like it's a very hard position to be in, because you don't want to be that person to be like, so... Have you noticed that I've lost all this weight or no?
Or you just ignoring it. Like,
I think it's really important, Anita, I think it's really important to actually acknowledge it, because I genuinely don't think that it does anything for anybody else to not actually be out in society going, I had bariatric surgery and look, I feel great and I look great and it's been the best thing ever, because it's one of those, you know, we're meant to feel shame about this. We're meant to feel like we don't deserve to spend this money on our bodies and we don't deserve to be happy in this way. And we're just meant to stay in this body. And I remember my doctor saying to me at my pre-surgery, saying, Shelley, a piece of chocolate cake in your body is different than a piece of chocolate cake in a person's body who has always been thin. It's different. The way that your body processes that cake is different. This isn't all your fault. And I just remember crying, thinking, somebody finally sees how much effort and how much work we've all put in before we've had surgery. Because, as you said, this is the last stop on the bus. You know, we want this to work. And it is a drastic thing, but it's also a normal thing that we should be allowed to do.
Oh, yeah.
We're allowed to spend that money on ourselves to get a better life for ourselves. And that's not a selfish thing.
No.
And it's much better for my family that I've done this now. And I'm glad I didn't wait 15 years until, you know, inevitably it would have come to the same conclusion. But me doing this now benefits my family in so many ways.
Yeah.
And I never understood self-care before that, not the painful psychological kind that, you know, that had me eating a whole packet of lollies on my way home from work and then hiding them in the bin just so my husband couldn't see. But I can admit that now. I can go, yes, I had a body that was susceptible to putting on weight, but I also had a body that I deliberately self-sabotaged every day by eating badly. And I can say that now. I couldn't say that before.
Yeah.
Surgery.
I love that your
I
doctor
couldn't
used that as
acknowledge
well.
that.
because we have people who, it blows my mind. There's a few people that I run with occasionally, and they said that they listen to Barry Banter all the time, and I'm like, just kind of like, why? You've like literally got 0% body fat. You can run like 40 kilometers at like a 3-minute pace. Like, why would you listen to Barry Banter? And she turned around and she said, because she is one of those people that have always had a super fast metabolism and has always been able to run and everything, and she's never understood the other side of it. So she actually listens to our podcast to understand the struggles that other people have had to go through, so that when she meets people who have, struggled with their weight or had bariatric surgery, she can actually kind of understand from their point of view, because she's never ever struggled with her weight. Like, love her, hate her at the same time, but like I actually appreciate the fact that she, like, I ran past her the other day and I heard my voice as I ran past her, and I was like, oh, Siobhan, you were listening to us. Like, what the hell? That was really weird. But like, I think, like, as much as people, like, we're trying to break the stigma and everything, I think that it's really great that people just understand the other side of the story, and that it's not necessarily, like, a lot of people think that people who get to being obese is because, yes, we emotionally eat and we sabotage ourselves, but at some point in time as well, it does come down to genetics sometimes and that sort of thing. Like, yes, 100% we do it to ourselves, but there's also other factors to it. A lot of underlying things.
Like, yeah, we always talk about that. Like, there's early childhood traumas. There's other things that lead to it. It's not so simplified as I like pie and I eat pie. Yeah, it's not that simple. It's a very complex thing, and putting a face to obesity is one of the big things we can do. Yeah. Because sometimes you're just categorized as obese. Like, you don't have your own story. You're not your own individual within the obese world.
And I think within the obese world too, though, it also helps break it down, because I know that when I was overweight and if I ever ate in a food court, I would always sit there thinking people are judging me for eating, I'd eat Subway, and I'd sit there and think, are people thinking, oh, good thing she's eating Subway because she's already overweight, or like, oh, it's still fast food, she shouldn't be eating that. Like, so it got to the point where I would never eat in food courts because I knew that people were judging me. But it's kind of...
They probably weren't. You were judging yourself.
100% they weren't.
Yeah. They weren't judging you, but you felt judged.
100%. But it kind of makes me feel really, like, from the community that we're in, just opening up other people's eyes to the fact that it's not necessarily the fact. Like, I used to go to F45 2 times a day when I was at 127 kilos. And like, one of the girls that I run with now, she's like, I remember you, and I'm so glad that you've actually got the result now for what you used to put the effort in. And she's like, I recognize that, you were there with me twice a day. She's a size 6. I was a size 26. And she was like, I don't understand, because you're doing exactly the same in front of her. I'm doing exactly the same stuff as her. Yes, I self-sabotaged, but I was also damn putting in that hard work. So it's just nice to know that people are actually starting to think outside the box of fat people just eat fat foods.
Yeah. And I think maybe, like I said, a lot of people who exercise before actually have significant benefits post-surgery, because the brown fat scenario does work in our favour, and we continue to exercise, and that's actually beneficial for our recovery as well. But, and also I think that's why it's great to have a psychologist, because this program that I went through and deliberately chose it because of all these benefits, they do make you basically open up and review this stuff, and you have to, because otherwise those patterns just repeat. I mean, I still do it. I still find snacks to eat in the car, and I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, this is clearly a trigger for me.
Yeah.
Getting in the car and having something, whether it's, now it's more likely to be pretzels or rice crackers, but it's still that repetitive action of I'm putting things in my mouth because I'm driving my car.
Yeah.
It's just
they're habits. Yeah. They're ingrained habits. Yeah. That's what it's about. But I think the big thing to take away from like the experience with your family and stuff like that, the kind of the thing that came to my mind is success will always trigger an insecure mind. Like that was something I always felt like I couldn't share my successes, because I always felt like there was always one in the crowd that got triggered by it. And I slowly realized that it wasn't so much what I was saying or what I was doing. It was because they had insecurities that were being triggered by that, which I think is going to happen no matter where you are in society. If you do well, there's always going to be one person that kind of takes the negative away from that and feels lesser because of it. And it's
Yeah.
not your fault. It's not their fault. It's just an inbuilt insecurity that they have. So understanding that, is something really important for people, I think.
There's been so
And
many.
that's why I think it's fantastic that you guys have a podcast and people actually admit the fact that they've had surgery, because there's so many people out there that think, like I did. And look, sometimes it works, but my doctor said to me, the amount of people that lose more than 30 kilos and keep it off for 5 years, which is the doctor's forever, is less than 5%.
Wow.
So that means 95% of people fail and feel like they're failing. But they're set up to fail because 5% is not enough. And so we need more people to say, actually, surgery is a viable option. And I had no idea there was a whole, plethora of people out there, you guys, and there's podcasts in New Zealand and podcasts in the States, and people on Facebook and people on Instagram, that I had no idea it even existed.
Yeah.
That there was this pool of people that were all changing their lives for the better. And actually, we're the ones that are the brave ones. And that's what we keep getting told at our surgery clinic, that the ones who actually go through with this surgery and combat these issues, there's not that many people out there that do what we do.
Yeah.
So we should all be really proud of ourselves. It doesn't matter whether we've lost 40 kilos or 80 kilos or 20 kilos. We're all on that train of going, you know what, we've done something that is really going to benefit us long term.
Well, we're going against the stigma, really, aren't we?
Yeah, and we're hacking away the path that others will be able to enjoy. And I think that's kind of the way to look at it.
And we shouldn't feel ashamed of it. We shouldn't feel ashamed that we've taken the easy route, which we all
100%.
clearly know that it's not the easy one.
We've all felt that at one point, usually
also,
pre-surgery, where we felt like we were taking the easy way out because other people perceived it that way, and we maybe perceived it a little bit ourselves as well. Yeah, so
I talked that way for years. I can do this. I exercise. I can watch what I eat. And some people can, and some people can't. And I'm one of the people that couldn't. And have made, a decent decision for myself. But the other thing is very, very keen on, and I find it really interesting that clearly in Australia it's a different scenario, is we all sign waivers to say that we won't drink for a year post-surgery.
Clearly it's different in Australia.
Clearly it's different.
There would be riots if they made us do that.
Your wine.
Yeah.
I'm on the soda waters tonight. Thank you very much.
I'm actually, I've decided that, I have an addictive personality. I'll admit that. And I've made a decision that I'm not going to drink again. The statistic that is bandied around and certainly at our weight loss centre is that 30% of people who have weight loss, you're 30% more likely to have an alcohol problem post-surgery.
Yeah.
And that's basically why they say, look, we don't want you to drink. We don't want you to be in the situation where you do. I went to I guess it's they run seminars. The surgery team run seminars with a whole bunch of significant people in the bariatric world. And am I allowed to say their names?
Yeah, go for it.
Yep. Okay. Often Kate Berridge is there, and Sonia McKinsey, who's amazing. And Sonia runs she's a life coach, and she runs a life coaching practice called Mind Empowerment. And she's got a self-sabotage workshop that she's doing at the moment. But also I went to one with an alcohol and menopause focus, which I thought was super interesting because it was all weight loss, specific about weight loss. And because you've got a bunch of people and quite a lot of women who are actually at that menopause stage or, close to it, that are all wondering what the surgery we had does to menopause. And it was really good. And it was quite scary because there was quite a lot of people in that room with alcohol issues. And I was like, geez, okay. It's a bit like going to an AA meeting when you're not an AA member. I was like, and it was, so I'm on the non-alcoholic wine.
Wow.
Okay, so if you guys if you've got some nice ones that you can recommend, I'd highly appreciate it.
Ones that don't taste like vinegar.
And all the ones over here taste like vinegar. They're disgusting.
Yeah, I like, there's a Jacob's Creek baked bubbly that's really good, the unvined.
You're just going to have to send it.
Yeah.
I was going to say, send it to me in a DM, but email me some links because it's funny that you mentioned this because like literally yesterday morning, Shannon and I were walking along the beach and I said to him, it was after Melbourne Cup, and I went across the road and I had 2 glasses of champagne with Shan and I was good. I came back, got back to studying and I started working again. But then Shan's mum messaged me and was like, do you want to come across for a bottle, like for a glass of bubbles? And I said,
bottle.
Yeah. Well, I said, yeah,
the
cool.
Truth.
So we went and had 2 glasses of champagne and then I walked home because the pub's literally across the road. And then, so it goes our house, a bottle shop and the pub. So we walked across to the pub and then on the way home from the pub, I was called in and I ended up drinking a bottle of champagne at home by myself.
Yeah.
And I said to Shan, like, I'll be the first person to admit it, and it's not something that I'm proud to admit, but I can easily polish off a whole bottle of bubbles or a whole bottle of wine and go to bed and wake up fine the next morning. And it's something that I literally said to Shannon.
You're still young.
Yeah, but I'm trying to have a baby. I'm trying to have a baby. That can't be good for me. Like,
yeah, that's not.
You know
that's
what I
not
mean?
good
Like,
for you.
so I actually had the conversation yesterday with Shannon saying this has got to stop because I'm like, it's becoming a habit and it's becoming a habit that, and I said, and bless my dad doesn't listen to these podcasts anymore, but my father doesn't have an alcohol problem, but he has an alcohol problem, if you know what I'm saying. Like he got to the point where I was saying, I don't want to necessarily, if I was to ever get married or anything like that, I was contemplating not inviting my father to my wedding because he gets so drunk that he slurs his words and he falls over and those sorts of things. And I was like, it's getting to the point now that I'm able to drink a bottle or more a night and I'm forgetting basic things, like, and so I had to pull the pin and just say I've got to stop doing this, hence the reason why I'm on the soda waters tonight, because it's just enough is enough and I don't want to I've transferred my addiction. I'm one of those 30%. And I know that I can stop it if I want to.
It's easy to do, apparently.
It's so easy to drink wine. It comes in a bottle and it tastes delicious. So that's me being 100% honest.
Yeah, and I think
I'm definitely on the quest for a decent non-alcoholic.
Yeah,
please.
There's heaps to choose from now, so.
Well, I've only seen a few, and I've tried a few of them. They taste like asshole. So if you can send me a few links, I don't mind spending a bit of money on it because Shannon and I are going through a whole process to try and have a baby, which I want to talk to you about that as well. But like, we're trying to have a baby, and by me drinking, a bottle of wine every night and waking up the next morning and still feeling fine, that's saying that I've conditioned myself to being able to drink that much alcohol, which isn't a good thing. And that's me being 100% honest.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those things, it's like, was it Beck the other day did a thing on Insta about like alcoholism and transfer addiction and stuff like that. And,
Becca, yeah.
And I think it's one of those things, and we've talked about this before, where it's the only drug that if you don't take it, especially in Australia, I don't know if New Zealand's the same, people question why you're not taking it, like why you're not having
100%.
it. Yeah. So
and that's why I had to just clarify too. I'm drinking soda water because I've realized that I have a problem, not because I'm pregnant, everybody. Like, that's the first thing that everybody says. Like, oh, you're drinking soda water? Are you pregnant? No, I'm just trying to cut down on an addiction.
It is. And that makes it the hardest addiction to get past, because I think it's so inbuilt into society in Australia and probably New Zealand as well, where it is just kind of, you're looked at weird if you don't drink. When it's like, if I was into ice,
people would be like, "Oh, what are you doing?
You know what I mean?
Stop doing that."
It's like, why has it got such a good stigma? But like, it's really not
because it's a social thing.
Yeah,
and it's acceptable.
Well, so you can see, like,
and the government gets money out of it.
You can see why the bariatric community adapts it, because it becomes like something that makes social experiences easier, and 2, it's so socially accepted that you're going to go out in these groups of bariatric people and get absolutely rode off and make memories when really you're not really making memories. You're just making a fool of yourself because that's what we
Which
most
is
of us
why
do.
the last couple of years we've tried to make the Christmas party, like the Queensland Christmas party, a little bit more about like, let's go to park run, let's climb a mountain, let's do this, and then have the event to try and encourage people to drop the bottle for a little while and get active.
Yeah, but we get it. Like, we all have these insecurities, and that wine takes the edge off enough that you feel more comfortable in social situations.
That's how I've been your partner for 3 years.
Yeah, literally. She's sobering up now, and she's kind of going, I have to talk to you about something.
So Shan, I haven't drunk for 2 days, and I've realised a few things.
Yeah. That's all right. Drink more. No.
He's like, BRB, I'm just going to the bottle shop.
Yeah. So it is definitely something that needs to be talked about more, and I guess people be more honest about it, which thank you, Alita, for being honest about it. And it is something
I think it's quite different for sleeve patients as well versus Roux Y patients, because in Roux Y patients, because the alcohol's not hitting your stomach and being used to metabolized a little bit there. Apparently, and I don't know what the status for sleeves, but we've been told, and I know I'm full of stats, but like this is how we're sort of informed, I guess, and this is how we're explained these things so that we can make good decisions, is that you have 4 times the amount of alcohol hitting your bloodstream instantaneously. So 4 drinks, 1 drink is 4 drinks for a gastric bypass patient.
Wow.
And it hits you straight away. And it's the buzz. Everyone, apparently, I'm not going to try it because I'm sure the buzz is amazing. But apparently you get this super buzz and you're hideously drunk quite quickly, and then it wears off super quick too. So you get those ding ding, and yeah.
I can vouch for that though. Fast. I can vouch for that because back a couple of it happened to me like back in early days of sleeve. I would have 1 drink, like literally I'd be like 1 or 2 people at a party or a gathering or whatever. And
I'd be 1 or 2 people at a party.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Yeah. But like, I'd be like, there wouldn't be very many of us there, and I'd have a glass of wine or something like that to start the night off. And then I would be super drunk from that 1 glass of wine, and everyone would be like, ooh, who invited that chick? She's like super like trashed already. But then within half an hour, I'd be like sober Sally. And then I'd have another drink, and I'd be like dancing on a table, and then it would wear off within half an hour, and I'd be like,
and then she'd still be dancing on the table.
But that's just what I do anyway. Like I'll be dancing on the dance floor instead of the table. You know what I mean? But it was real like ebbs and flows, because you kind of the drink would hit you super fast, and then you'd be like, oh, okay, and then it'll wear off a bit, and you'd sober up, and then you'd have another glass, and you'd be like intoxicated again. Like it's sort of, maybe I've conditioned myself, but it's sort of like worked its way out now. But when I first started drinking I waited maybe 6 months or so before I actually started drinking again. I had 1 or 2 at the 3-month mark to celebrate a friend's 30th, but I didn't actually start properly drinking until like the 6 to 8 month mark. But yeah, around that time I would just have a glass and I would be shit faced, and then it would wear off, and then I'd have another glass and I would be like legless, and people would be like, does this chick have bipolar? Like, what's going on? So I think it might be it was similar for me. I don't know if it's the same for everybody, but yeah, it's just, and now
I think what you were saying then with the bypass is a little bit different, because we still have a little stomach. So it's probably not having the full effect like what she's talking about with the bypass, because by the bypass, it goes straight from your esophagus to your small intestine.
Yeah.
So it's straight absorption. Like there's no filter
into your bloodstream.
So you could definitely not get behind a car, like behind the wheel of a car, because you'd be like, oh, I've had a glass of wine. No. They'd be like, no, but you read like you've had 4 glasses of wine. Like,
100%. And that's what they say to you. Say, for the rest of your life, never get behind the wheel of a car if you've had a drink. Wow. Because you have no genuine way of knowing what you're going to blow on a breath tester. And it's happened to patients, and they've blown drunk, and they've had, not very many.
Wow. Especially as well, because we can't eat and drink at the same time as well. So like you've got that whole, you can't, I know that when I was younger I used to say eating's cheating, but that kind of like resonates for us now because you can't eat and drink at the same time. So I remember we spoke to, I think it was Em, like way back in the day. She said that she would stop, like she would choose drinking over eating. So like if she'd get home from work or whatever and she'd go to sit down to have dinner and then her friends would send her a message and be like, do you want to come to the pub? So oh no, it was Lauren. And she was like, okay, cool. So she'd put her dinner back in the fridge. She wouldn't eat it all. She'd go to the pub and get on the drinks. And then next minute, you know, she's absolutely written off because she can't eat. She can't and she's chosen to drink. And that's just like a recipe for disaster for us.
Yeah. It's like forced eating cheating.
Yeah, it can be quite, It was very eye-opening going to this talk.
So does your talk offer it to Australian patients who want to dial in and listen?
I'm sure they do. I mean, we're super lucky to have just everyone hooked in together, and it just seems to be, you know, when I'm sort of feeling like I'm off my bad habits are coming back, and then another talk will come up, and I'm like, great, okay, you know, I can be in a room full of bariatric patients, and we're all kind of on the same page, and but it is like a little family. I mean, at retreat there was a bunch of people there who weren't from our surgery team, who had paid additional to come to retreat. Which I thought was awesome. You know, it isn't just a closed shop.
Yeah.
If you're a bariatric patient, you can register, and you know, Sonia comes to retreat, and Kate comes to retreat, and you know, the surgery team are there. It's just I just really like the way they treat you as a person, and you're a whole person. You're not just someone to slice and dice on the table and thank you very much. You know, now I've got your cash. Awesome. You know, see you later. There are doctors like that in New Zealand.
Oh, in Australia.
Where there's no support. And I think you've just got to do your research. If you're looking at surgery, just do your research and find somewhere where you've got a good support network.
100%.
Because it is available. It's just,
Yeah. But it is. It's like I think understanding that it's more than just the surgery. Like, and that's kind of what you're saying. And I think, you know, if we look at, I said this to my surgeon the other day, I want to know the statistics per surgeon. So like, look at the surgeons who don't have the support network versus people who have a bit of support and, you know, so on and so forth, to understand statistically how much the extra stuff helps, because I feel like it's quite large, but obviously we just see the statistic of 50% people regain and stuff like that. We see the larger majority statistic and not the broken down to each surgeon, understanding how much the extra support offers, you know, towards people being successful long term, because I think that's the one thing that's missing from bariatric surgery, and you know, it's something I frequently talk about. We need more. We need more that focuses towards the mental side, mental habit understandings and things like that, to kind of help recraft the mind, because they fix the plumbing. The mind needs to follow behind.
Yeah, exactly. And let's be honest, no bariatric patient has any idea what maintenance is, because if we knew what maintenance was,
we wouldn't have
had to have surgery.
Yeah.
So all of these things as part of that maintenance, and going, I don't understand it. Like I probably still don't understand it. No, I'm not sure what I should be. I've tracked back, and I got too low, and people started asking me whether I had cancer or whether I was sick, and that was scary. So I was like, oh my God, I've done everything right. And I was, you know, I'm very black and white. So if somebody says to me, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, I'm like, okay, I won't do that. And I won't do that. And I got super low and very gaunt. And and then I was like, and then I was ringing them going, I'm scared. What do I do now? Because I feel too light.
Yeah. And what did your surgeon tell you to do? Like, what was the advice given when you got to that low point?
It was about putting in so we were very rigid on 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, no snacks in between. And then they basically said, put some snacks in. And I just, to be honest, I probably went off track a little bit from what they said, because I was proper scared that I was going to waste away. And I'm like, I can't, I remember I was listening to one of your podcasts where one of your guests basically said, you know, she was trying to build back up, and a psychological battle you get between going so low and then having to regain some weight, and then you're going, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. This is totally counterproductive to everything I've done.
Yeah.
Was quite scary. And I just started snacking every time I was hungry, and now I'm trying to rein that back in because now I just snack. I'm like, oh, I'm hungry. I'll go get some nuts. And oh, I'm hungry. I'll go and I try and make it healthy, decent stuff. But I still have those times where my, I have my nemesis foods that creep in, and I feel so awful after it, like physically awful. But my brain doesn't remember that I feel awful when I've had that food. It's like I'm a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
And I want M&Ms for every meal. And that's, I think psychologically I've always felt like that. But I was like, yay, I'm an adult. I can eat M&Ms all the time.
Yeah.
And no one can tell me that I can't eat M&Ms.
It's a hard thing to make though, because M&Ms are delicious. You know, the brain goes, I love M&Ms. And you're kind of like, how do you avoid that sensation that your brain feels? It's almost, it's going against what your brain's telling you. And it's something that, like, it's easy for people to sit there and be like, oh, but just don't eat the M&Ms. Yeah, but my brain's telling me I love M&Ms. If my brain tells me I love exercise, I listen to that. You know, if my brain tells me water's great, I listen to that. But, like, why shouldn't I listen to the M&M part? You know, it's a really...
It's very...
It's a head game. It's all a big
head
game.
It is a head game.
Yeah.
Everything's a head game. But this phase that I'm in now, the instructions are basically, you have to do, you're now a light person. You're now a person that is a normal weight and a normal BMI, BMI's all bullshit, clearly. But it's, that BMI is the right level, and you need to do what a light person who manages their weight does, and that is getting on the scales and making sure you know where you are, so that you don't get on and have a 5-month gap and all of a sudden you've gained 10 kilos, because we've all done that before.
Yeah.
And then eating salads, like protein first and then some good stuff. Yeah. Trying to stay away from the junk food, all those sorts of things, and that's what they basically say. You've got to have the mentality of a person who maintains their weight, and because most people, I know, there are some skinny people who just eat rubbish all the time, but most of the people that stay and maintain healthy weight have a healthy weight because they eat certain foods and they exercise a certain amount, all of those things.
Yeah.
So just trying to work out what maintenance.
So one thing, you're like a statistical expert. Like, I love how you have all your little statistics. Like, I'm not going to lie, that plays right into me. What has been something...
No, it's not me. It's my clinic, which is great.
I love it, though, because it's one way to understand information in a real form. It's like, knowing a statistical, you kind of go, well, like, 4 of us in this room are struggling with something in this area. So I love that. But for you, not even statistical based, but what's been something that you've learned throughout this process that you found really beneficial to where you're at now?
I didn't really do self-care before. I didn't put myself first in any situation. It was always my husband, my daughter, my friends. I was never a priority in my life. And I think doing this and dialing into the fact that, my husband was supportive, we paid an awful lot of money to do it, and I really leaned into it and actually made sure it worked because it was a car. So I essentially spent a car worth of money on myself, and I was like, actually, I am worth this. I'm worth it to my family, I'm worth it to my community, and I've never done that before. I've never put myself first. And physically, I think also, when you're losing all that weight and you're so tired and you have to listen to your body, you're forced to, and you need to make sure that you take your vitamins and you need to make sure you're eating well. And I just felt that it was so beneficial for me to feel like that. I was putting myself first, and I was like, you know what, I'm really sore. I have to go have a bath. and I just made time for myself. And I'm so grateful for that, because I never would have done that without this.
And I think it's important as well, you touched on it earlier in the episode, like self-care doesn't necessarily mean, having a bath, putting on your face masks, all that sort of thing. Like it could mean going for a run if you feel like you just need that time to go for a run. It could mean going and talking to your psychologist because you feel like you need to touch base with somebody. It could be going and talking to the dietitian because you need to reconnect. Like doing things that are going to be beneficial to you as a person is all self-care. Like we put such emphasis on like, oh, I had a bubble bath today and a glass of champagne and I put a face mask on, and like that's amazing self-care. But like you've got to do what you said before, like the troublesome, the hard self-care as well.
Yeah.
Is it bad that like when you were talking about self-care and you're talking going through all this stuff? No, I'm not going that way. But I was like, why did laying naked on the lawn come to my mind? Like, when is that my self-care?
You don't even have a lawn.
I don't even have a lawn. But like when you were going through them, I was like laying naked on the lawn, and I was like, that's just weird.
If you wanted to lay naked on the lawn, you'd have to lay on a vacant block of land next door, and you were not going to do that. Please do that tomorrow morning, because that would be hilarious.
It could traumatize a few neighbours. But yeah, I was like, that's weird. Like, but everyone's self-care could look very differently, and that's kind of where my head was going, because like my self-care could be different to your self-care, and
we all know that you like to be naked, Shannon.
I love to be naked. It's very freeing, all right? Like,
but I guess
we all enjoy being naked slightly more than we used to.
Well, that's
Let's be honest.
Well, you like to be naked prior to this as well.
Yeah.
Different reasons.
Semi-nudist over here, just going to say, yeah.
I guess, look, honestly, Shelley, we said it just before when we had to stop the camera. Like, I could honestly sit here and talk to you for hours because you are just so insightful, and there's been things that you've said that I'm like, oh, I really want to chat about that, but then we'll go off on a completely different tangent. And honestly, you've been amazing. But I think the thing that I would like to ask you to wrap this whole episode up is, what is the best piece of advice that you could give somebody who's just starting out in this journey?
I think the best thing to do is be honest with yourself and be honest with your friends and be honest with your family, and consider not hiding this, because there's so many amazing things that can come from just being open and honest with other people. You can benefit other people. And if me coming on and talking to you guys and just being a normal person that's in the community, that's not, not wanting followers and not wanting, anything out of being a bariatric patient other than saying it's okay to do this. We're worth it, and we deserve it. We're, a lot of mums, a lot of dads, the big barrier to us in New Zealand is the cost, because we don't have the same structure that you guys have. So it's significant to think about spending that kind of money on yourself, but it's important for your life. Yeah. And just being open and honest and saying, yes, this is okay. Yes, I did this and this is okay. And if you want to talk about it, I'm really happy to talk about it. The amount of people that came out of the woodwork when I said, I've done it. And, if you have an issue with it, then I'm okay with that. But I just want the positivity. I'm not interested in arguing whether I was right or wrong to do it. The amount of people that emailed me and said, I've actually done it too, and I didn't know that they'd done it, and they were secret, I think it's just important to be open and honest with everybody around you, because that will benefit you in the long run significantly, and probably benefit a whole bunch of people too. So, yeah.
I think there's something about owning it that is good for you, because it also helps reinforce maybe other areas of yourself that you may not have enforced early on in life. There's something about saying, I've done this and I'm proud of this, that has its own little realm to it, because I think in past, a lot of us have sometimes held back our opinion or held back the way we felt for someone else. And by doing it and saying, I did this, I'm proud I did this, and I feel amazing, it almost goes, I'm worth this statement to a degree. Like, so I totally agree. And like, you know, owning it, it's you, it's part of you, you know, rather than getting that.
It's your story. And if you can be honest about it and help somebody else to realize that it's not something that you have to be ashamed of, and it's not something that you have to think, oh, I could do it, you know, I could do it myself. If you decide to take this step, own it. It's part of who you are.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a whole bunch of people out there, including you guys, that are fantastic ambassadors for, you know, our little
community,
club.
Our family.
Our club.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's not something to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't be ashamed of it. We're allowed to do stuff that benefits our lives. And ultimately, we're not going to look back and go, oh, I could have bought a new car. How cool would that have been?
That's it.
It's not even transferable that way.
You're not going to judge someone for putting a $25,000 bidet in their bathroom, but you're going to, you know, criticize them for spending $25 per day. But like,
where
you
did
know,
you get bidet from? That was the most random thing ever.
I was kind of like, what's the most judged thing in your house if you had one? And I feel like bidet, maybe.
I'm surprised that you even, like, no offense to you, but I'm surprised you even.
I'm a pretty classy human leader. You should know this by now. I'm up to the.
I really like
lingo.
one of those endless spas that you can swim in. You know, those are really cool.
Yeah.
But with the jets?
And we could probably buy one of those for $25,000.
That's what I mean.
But, you know, I certainly don't regret it.
No.
And I'm very, you know, I'm 14 and a half months out. And once you've done the hard bit, your life is unimaginably better.
Yeah, that's it. At the end of the day, the best thing to invest in is yourself.
That's it.
Moral of this whole story.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. People spend $25,000 on their education every day of the week.
Yep.
What's the difference? Okay, so hang on. Putting it into perspective, people spend $25,000 getting a boob implants put in, like, and nobody questions that. But we spend $25,000 on getting our stomach chopped out or replumbed, and people question it
to lose weight. Yeah,
like that's exactly right. Yeah. I always said I wanted to get a boob reduction. I just got an everything reduction.
I love that.
So the new response, guys. Okay, so like, if someone judges you for having bariatric surgery, just turn around and be like, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Like, do you want to talk about something? I feel like this may trigger your insecurities a little bit. Are you okay?" Like, that's the new question, guys. If you ever asked, "Why did you have bariatric surgery?" Be like, "No, are you okay? Let's talk about your issues." Okay. That's
because this is about you, not about me.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Well, Shelley, you have been honestly, like, you've actually the whole time we've been sitting here, you've been making me like question certain things. You made me open up about the fact that I'm an alcoholic. No.
Oh, jeez.
But like,
Shelley,
honestly,
what have you done?
No, you've been amazing, and like, honestly, I could sit here and talk to you for hours, but I feel like we have to cut this off at some point in time. But like, honestly, you've been amazing, and I'm so grateful for you coming on and telling your story and telling us about how it all happens over in New Zealand. And honestly, you've been amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you so much. I listen to you guys every week, and you guys are super inspiring. And just I think talking to more people, you know, that and that's why I sort of turned off one day, and I was like, I wish they had somebody on that wasn't an Instagrammy person. And I like the Instagrammy people too, but it doesn't have to be, you know, the majority of the community is not like that.
Yeah.
So it's nice to, and I was like, oh, well, if I want that, maybe I should just put my application in and speak to you because, you know.
Yeah.
And I think
you're 100% right. Lead by example, because we would love to get more people like yourself who, you know, are doing it for maybe reasons beyond the Instagram and the attention that Instagram brings. And
there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong with
100%,
that.
there's nothing
wrong with that.
All has its pros and cons. But it's nice to have people who want to come on to share their story for, you know, non-beneficial reasons, because they see the bigger picture and they want to hopefully help that one person kind of, you know, make the change or take the leap, or, you know, a little bit of information that makes their journey better. So,
and on that note as well, if you're listening to the podcast and you don't know how to reach out to us because you're not on Instagram or you're not on Facebook, you can jump on our website and there's a guest form that you fill out. And I will admit that we take a little bit of time to get back to certain people because we like to stagger people's journeys. Like we don't like to talk to people who are like 10 months, 10 months, 10 months. We like to try and stagger it. So it's like someone who's 3 years, someone who's 1 year, someone who's a couple of months out. But if you submit a form and tell us your journey, I promise you, we will get back to you and we will get you on the show.
We're very led by, like, we have people come on and they like send a message and say, hey, we want to hear from someone who's had a bypass. So then we'll look on our list and see who has a bypass, or someone who we want to hear someone early stages. So we look for someone who's early stages. Like, at the end of the day, we want to give people what they want to hear and learn from, you know? So that's kind of, we will eventually, if you submit a form, you will 100% come on, because we want to hear from everyone. Everyone has a story. Everyone has amazing information to share. And yeah, speaking of which, Shelley, if someone wanted to reach out to you, because usually it's Instagram.
How do people reach out to you?
Yeah.
Her number is 04. No,
I'm on Facebook. So Shelley Simpson Talpo, drop me a message.
Okay.
Whatever they are, Facebook Messenger.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We'll put that in the
We'll
bio below.
We'll put it in the comments and in the note thing that goes
She's
under
down
the
with
YouTube.
this. She's down with technology.
I only
we'll put
do
in
the
the
social.
under bit.
I only
under
do the social media
section.
stuff. I don't know what goes underneath the YouTube thing.
Well, I don't either.
That's his domain. We'll put it in the caption. We'll put it in the comments. We'll tag you on Facebook so people can reach out to you, because honestly, if anybody gets, like, honestly, I feel like I've had a therapy session just talking to you today. It sounds crazy, but like, you've just opened up my mind to a lot of things, because I think the way that you guys do it over there at the clinic that you went to, you're very supported and you're very knowledgeable, and I'm grateful for sitting down and talking to you.
Yeah, I'm very grateful to them, and it's a shame we can't magically put who they are, but if you message me, I'll let you know.
Yeah, 100%. If you want to know who it is and you're in New Zealand, please reach out to Shelley. We try not to like put people's surgeons' names out to lead people certain ways, but please reach out to Shelley if you're in New Zealand, because it sounds like an incredible surgeon and an incredible team that have done very beneficial by you. So,
and if you're in Australia and know somebody that does something similar, reach out to us and let us know so we can get you guys on too. So,
well, anyway, that is another episode of Barry Banter. Oh, yes, that is another episode of Barry Banter in the books. We hope you got a little something from that one.
Head on over to Facebook or Instagram and check us out, or go to baribanter.com where you can watch past episodes, give us feedback, and let us know who you want to hear from next.
We love you all, and as always, please stay beautiful.